Those of us who know something about Georgia O'Keeffe are likely to think of her like this: an icon of American art, the mother of American modernism, renegade, independent, hardy, self-reliant, living a life of her choosing in New Mexico, fulfilled by her art. In the exhibit Modern Nature, George O'Keeffe and Lake George, we will come to know an O'Keeffe different from the mythology of her later years. A young woman, reserved and intensely private, who pushed the boundaries of conventions both as an artist and as a woman in the early 20th century. O'Keeffe was born in 1887 in Wisconsin. She grew up on a farm and had a connectedness to the land. She also knew from a young age that she wanted to be an artist. As a young woman, she studied art at the Art Institute of Chicago and the Art Students League in New York City. Although she was lauded by her instructors, O'Keeffe's experience at art school left her feeling flat. She disliked having to mimic and copy the style of master painters. She was so disillusioned with the experience that she briefly abandoned the idea of being an artist. After a 4-year hiatus from painting, she took a summer painting course at the University of Virginia, where she was introduced to the ideas of Arthur Wesley Dow, who encouraged artists to express themselves using line, color, and shading harmoniously. From 1912 to 1916, O'Keeffe returned to her art with new vigor, teaching art in primary and secondary schools in Texas, interspersed with studying with Arthur Dow at Columbia University. She was able to move away from the form she had found so stifling in her previous studies. She said of Dow, "It was he who effected my start, who helped me to find something of my own." O'Keeffe created a series of abstract charcoal drawings and sent them to a friend in New York, Anna Politzer, for her feedback. Politzer took the drawings to Alfred Stieglitz, a mover and shaker in the New York art world. He was a photographer and a modern art promoter. He owned the 291 Gallery, where he introduced many avant-garde European artists to an American audience, and forwarded his mission of getting photography recognized as a fine arts form. Stieglitz was wowed by the drawings and exhibited them in 1916 without O'Keeffe's permission. Despite being a bit miffed about this, O'Keeffe and Stieglitz corresponded over the next 2 years, and the two discovered that they were deeply kindred spirits and quite in love. In 1918, O'Keeffe moved to New York and moved in with Stieglitz, despite the fact that he was still married at the time to another woman and 23 years her senior. The summer of 1918 was the first time O'Keeffe visited Lake George, where the Stieglitz extended family summered on their large estate. The Stieglitz clan was large and boisterous and tightly knit. O'Keeffe, who was more inclined to calm and solitude, sought refuge from the family melee with nature. She took long walks in the Adirondacks, gathering souvenirs like leaves, and communing with trees, boating on the lake, befriending the estate caretaker and assisting him with his gardening, and in her studio, which she dubbed My Shanty, a run-down outbuilding on the farm, she captured her experiences in paint. Over the next 16 years, she would return, staying long past the summer tourism season and into the crisp autumn. These are the paintings that are shared in this exhibition. What do we hope for our students to see, experience, and understand about O'Keeffe and this exhibit? We've identified a few key concepts that we hope the students will take away from this experience. These ideas not only apply to a fine arts approach to understanding O'Keeffe's work, but they are also ideas and habits of mind that will benefit our students in all areas of their learning and in their life. An eloquent writer, O'Keeffe expressed herself with words as beautifully as with images, so we'll use some of her own writing to help illustrate the key concepts of this study. Abstraction. How can seeing beyond the surface appearance of things help us to tell stories in new ways and approach a deeper understanding? Georgia said, "It is surprising to me to see how many people separate the objective from the abstract. Objective painting is not good painting unless it is good in the abstract sense. A hill or a tree cannot make a good painting just because it is a hill or a tree. It is lines and colors put together so that they say something. For me, that is the very basis of painting. The abstraction is often the most definite form for the intangible thing in myself that I can only clarify in paint." She also said, "I found I could say things with color and shapes that I couldn't say in any other way, things that I had no words for." Seriality. How can iteration, or returning to explore the same idea many times, help us to know something more deeply? O'Keeffe said, "Nothing is less real than realism. Details are confusing. It is only by selection, by elimination, by emphasis, that we get at the real meaning of things." Perspective, scale, and point of view. How can shifting our perspectives create new opportunities and new meaning? Georgia said, "I often painted fragments of things because it seemed to make my statement as well or better than the whole could." She also said, "The unexplainable thing in nature that makes me feel the world is big and fat beyond my understanding. To understand maybe by trying to put it into form, to find the feeling of infinity on the horizon line or just over the next hill." Focused observation. How can attentiveness to detail and nuance make our experiences more fulfilling? O'Keeffe said, "A flower is relatively small. Everyone has many associations with a flower, the idea of flowers. You put out your hand to touch the flower, lean forward to smell it, maybe touch it with your lips almost without thinking, or give it to someone to please them. Still, in a way, nobody sees a flower, really. It is so small, we haven't the time, and to see takes time, like to have a friend takes time. So I said to myself, I'll paint what I see, what the flower is to me, but I'll paint it big, and they will be surprised into taking time to look at it. I will make even busy New Yorkers take time to see what I see in flowers." Personal or emotional connection to nature. The external world of sensory experiences and the internal realm of emotions. How can they converge to achieve true communion with nature? Georgia quipped, "If only people were like trees, I might like them better." She also said that if you take a flower in your hand and really look at it, it's your world for a moment. I want to give that world to someone else. Sense of place, or spirit of place. How the many unique details and characteristics of a location, the vastness of a landscape, or the nuance of its tiniest details. These things can foster authentic human attachment and a feeling of belonging. I have never seen a more beautiful night than last night. A breathless kind of stillness, the mountains of pale gray blue in the very white moonlight. I walked down to the lake, almost went out on it. It was so still and warm. I stood a long time looking at the perfect reflection of the mountain. I walked about in our woods to all of the places I like. Then I painted. My paintings sometimes grow by pieces from what is around. I have used these things to say what is to me the wideness and the wonder of the world as I live in it."